Before the first star flickered in the void, before time had a second to its name, there was a voice. What followed was an epic spanning 4 millennia, a saga of stardust and bone, of split seas and crumbling empires. From the golden gates of Eden to the silent dungeons of Babylon, this is not just ancient history, it is the blueprint of human existence. Why did a perfect paradise fall? How did a nomadic shepherd change the world forever? Brace yourself. We are unfolding the entire Old Testament in 30 minutes. The mystery begins now. Genesis, the architecture of existence and the dawn of man. In the absolute beginning, there was nothing. No stars flickered in a void. No clock ticked the passing of seconds. No matter occupied the vast, silent emptiness. There was only the eternal, self-existent Creator, dwelling in unapproachable light. Then, the silence of eternity was shattered by a voice. Not a whisper, but a sovereign command that carried the weight of reality itself. According to the book of Genesis, the universe did not emerge from a chaotic accident or a blind collision of forces. It was the deliberate, artistic expression of God. "Let there be light," he declared, and at that instant, the first photons pierced the darkness, defining the very first day. Over the course of 6 literal days, we witness an unfolding tapestry of divine order, a systematic preparation of a house for a guest who had not yet arrived. The foundation, days 1 to 3. God established the environments. He separated light from dark, forming time. He separated the waters above from the waters below, forming the atmosphere. He gathered the waters to reveal dry land, forming the earth, and immediately clothed it in lush vegetation, seed-bearing plants, and fruit trees. The inhabitants, days 4 to 6. God filled these environments with purpose. The sun, moon, and stars were set in the expanse to govern seasons and years. The seas swarmed with living creatures, from the microscopic to the leviathan, and the skies were filled with winged birds. Finally, the earth brought forth livestock, creeping things, and wild beasts. But the crescendo of creation was not found in the swirling galaxies or the majestic mountains. It was found in a creature shaped uniquely from the very dust of the ground. Unlike the animals brought forth by a mere word, man was formed by the intimate hands of God. In a moment of divine intimacy, God breathed the breath of life directly into his nostrils, and man became a living soul. Adam, and subsequently Eve, were placed in the Garden of Eden, a sanctuary of absolute perfection, where heaven and earth overlapped. In the center of this paradise stood 2 trees of profound significance, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God gave one solitary restriction. You must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat from it, you will certainly die. This was not a trap, but a test of love and trust. To be truly human, Adam had to have the choice to obey.
Did God really say you must
Enter the
not
serpent,
eat from any tree
the
in
most
the garden?
cunning of creatures, a vessel for the ancient rebel. Through subtle whispers, he planted the first seeds of skepticism. Did God really say? He twisted the truth, suggesting that God was holding back greatness from them. Eve took the fruit. Adam followed her lead. In that catastrophic moment, the fall occurred. The harmony of the universe fractured. Shame replaced innocence, and for the first time in history, humanity hid from their maker among the trees. They were exiled from Eden, guarded by cherubim and a flaming sword, and the long, painful march of human history began. The spreading shadow and the great deluge. The exile from Eden was not just a change of geography, it was a corruption of the human DNA. Sin spread like a viral plague through the generations. Adam's firstborn, Cain, consumed by
Accept
a toxic
my
jealousy
sacrifice, Father,
because his brother Abel's
and look with
sacrifice
favor
was
upon
accepted
me, your
and his
servant.
was not, committed the first murder in history. This act of fratricide set the tone for the antediluvian world, a world where the sacredness of life was discarded. Centuries passed, and the biblical record paints a grim, haunting picture of a world spiraling into total anarchy. The text notes that the Nephilim were on the earth, mighty men of old, perhaps a sign of spiritual and physical corruption. The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. It is one of the most grieving verses in all of Scripture. The Creator's heart was filled with pain for having made man. Judgment was inevitable, for a holy God cannot leave infinite evil unpunished. Yet, even in judgment, there was a window of grace. He found one man, Noah, a man who, despite the surrounding darkness, walked faithfully with God. God commanded Noah to build an ark, a massive three-decked wooden vessel, roughly 450 feet long, designed to preserve a remnant of life. For 120 years, as Noah hammered the gopher wood, he served as a preacher of righteousness. Yet the world responded only with mockery. Then the day of reckoning arrived. The windows of heaven opened, and the fountains of the great deep burst forth. For 40 days and nights, a global cataclysm reshaped the planet.
Run! Quickly,
Every
the water
breathing
is
thing
rising!
on dry land perished beneath the rising tide. When the waters finally receded after 150 days of flooding, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. Noah stepped out onto a scrubbed, silent world. His first act was to build an altar. God responded with a covenant of mercy, promising never again to destroy the earth with a flood. He set the rainbow in the clouds, a celestial sign that serves as a reminder that though man is sinful, God is patient.
Hallelujah, the light returns forevermore.
The Tower of Babel and the call of the Patriarch. Humanity was given a second chance to fill the earth, but the pride of Eden remained.
We must meet the quota
Instead
by
of
sundown.
scattering as God commanded, the post-flood population gathered in the plain of Shinar. They sought to build a city and a tower, the Tower of Babel, that would reach into the heavens. Their motive was pure self-glorification. Let us make a name for ourselves. To prevent the concentration of human evil and the arrogance of a global empire, God confused their languages. In an afternoon, neighbors could no longer understand one another.
saying? I cannot
The project collapsed under the weight of miscommunication, and the people scattered, forming the various nations and linguistic groups of the ancient world. At this juncture, the narrative of the Bible performs a dramatic zoom. It moves away from the history of all nations to focus on a single, aging
Look up
man
at the stars.
living in the sophisticated
As
city
countless
of
as
Ur,
they are,
Abram,
so
later
shall
known
your
as
descendants
Abraham.
be.
God issued a radical, life-altering call. Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. God bound himself to Abraham with three staggering, unconditional promises.
Unload the supplies by the
One,
large rock.
A
We
great
will rest
nation.
here for the night.
From his loins would come a people as numerous as the stars. 2, a promised land. His descendants would inherit the land of Canaan. 3, a universal blessing. Through his seed, all the families of the earth would eventually be blessed. Abraham was 75 years old, and his wife Sarah was barren. They waited 25 long years, enduring doubt and even trying to help God through Hagar and Ishmael. Yet, When Abraham was 100 and Sarah was 90, well beyond the age of hope, the miracle happened. Isaac was born.
Give birth.
But the ultimate test of Abraham's faith was yet to come. God commanded him to take Isaac, the son of the promise, to Mount Moriah and offer him as a burnt sacrifice. It was a harrowing 3-day journey. At the summit, as the knife was raised in obedience, an angel stopped him. God provided a ram caught in the thicket as a substitute. This moment was a prophetic shadow of a future event on that same mountain range, where God would not spare his own son, Isaac,
Your name
Jacob,
is no longer
and the
Jacob,
struggle of
but
grace.
Israel.
The covenant promise passed from Abraham to Isaac, and eventually to Isaac's twin sons, Esau and Jacob.
Me for the last time,
Their
my
story
son.
is one of
The
human
blessing belongs to
frailty
your
and
brother.
divine sovereignty. Jacob, the younger, was a grasper and a deceiver. He tricked his famished brother Esau out of his birthright for a bowl of stew, and later
Voice is
deceived his
Jacob's
blind
voice,
father to
but
steal the
hands are
patriarchal
hands
blessing.
Of Esau. Come
Jacob
near
fled
now,
for his life
and
to
let me
Haran,
bless thee.
but he could not
My
flee from
blessing.
God.
It is
On his journey
mine.
back years later,
have
fearing his
stolen
brother's
it from me.
revenge, Jacob had a mysterious, supernatural encounter by the Jabbok River. He wrestled with a man, a divine
I will
manifestation,
not let you
until
go
daybreak.
unless
He refused
you
to
bless
let
me.
go, crying out, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." His hip was put out of joint, a permanent reminder of his weakness. But his name was changed to Israel, he who struggles
I am
with
the
God.
Lord, the
No
God
longer
of
just a
Abraham.
deceptive individual, he was now the namesake of a nation. Jacob had 12 sons, the patriarchs of the 12 tribes. Among
Deliver
them,
me,
he
I
favored
pray, from
Joseph,
the hand
the
of my
son of his
brother,
old age,
from the hand of
gifting him a
Esau.
coat of many colors.
I am very much afraid.
This favoritism fueled a murderous jealousy in the older brothers,
To see your
who
face
sold
again is
Joseph
like
into
seeing the
slavery
face of God.
and told their father he
forgive
was
you.
dead.
Welcome home.
Joseph, the providence of the pit and the palace. Joseph's life is perhaps the most profound example of God's hidden hand.
Look how he parades in his
Carried
coat.
to Egypt in chains, he served in the house of Potiphar,
must deal with
an
him now.
Egyptian officer. Joseph
Into
was
the pit
prosperous
with the
because
dreamer!
the Lord was with
No,
him,
please
but he was
don't leave
soon
me here.
falsely accused of attempted rape by Potiphar's wife and cast into a dungeon. For
Keep
years,
moving.
Joseph languished
Do not
in prison,
slow down.
forgotten by those he helped. However, God gave
will
him the
oversee
gift
my
of
household
interpreting
affairs.
dreams.
See to it that
When
everything
Pharaoh
is in
was
order,
troubled by
and
visions
report
of 7
directly to
healthy
me.
cows being eaten by 7 gaunted ones, Joseph was summoned. He predicted 7 years of immense abundance, followed by 7 years of catastrophic famine. Pharaoh, recognizing a divine spirit in Joseph, promoted him to vizier, making him the most
He tried to
powerful
lie
man
with
in
me.
Egypt,
Seize him.
second only to the king. When the famine struck, it devastated the entire Near East. Back in Canaan, Jacob's sons were forced to travel to Egypt to buy grain. They bowed before the very brother they had sold into slavery, not recognizing him in his Egyptian regalia. After a series of tests to see if his brothers had changed, Joseph revealed himself in a flood of tears.
What of the 7 lean
His
cows?
theology of suffering was
The
summed
7
up
good
in one
cows are
sentence.
7 years, and the 7
As for
good
you,
heads are 7
you meant
years.
evil against me,
There will be 7
but
years
God
of great
meant it for
plenty.
good.
Move the grain to the upper
The
levels.
entire clan of Israel,
We must
70
be
people,
prepared for the
moved
lean
to
years.
Egypt, settling in the fertile land of Goshen, where they were
It is
protected
I,
and fed
Joseph.
during the famine. Moses and the power of the Exodus. 4 centuries passed. The small family of 70 grew
The
into a
grain stores
massive
in the
nation of
southern
millions,
domes must be
so
secured
numerous they
before the
alarmed the
inundation.
Egyptian authorities.
Go now and
A
see
new
that it
pharaoh
is done.
arose who
Keep
did not
moving.
know Joseph.
The sun is high.
He
and the bricks are
enslaved the
few.
Israelites,
Work faster.
subjecting them to brutal labor and eventually ordering the infanticide of all Hebrew male
Move the
infants.
stone now, you lazy dog.
From this darkness, a deliverer was plucked from the Nile. Moses, a Hebrew raised in the Egyptian court, tried to save his people by his own strength and failed, fleeing to the desert of Midian for 40 years. At the age of 80, a simple shepherd, he encountered a bush that burned with fire but was not consumed. From the flames, the great I Am spoke. Moses returned to Egypt with his brother Aaron to confront the most powerful man on earth.
I know not this,
When
Lord,
Pharaoh refused
and I
to
will
release
not
the
let
slaves,
Israel go.
God unleashed the 10 plagues. Each plague was a direct strike against a specific Egyptian deity, turning the Nile, the god Hapi, into blood, bringing darkness, the god Ra, over the land. The final plague was the most devastating, the death of every firstborn.
ruined. We have nothing
The Israelites were spared only if they applied the blood of a spotless lamb to their doorposts, the institution of the Passover.
this house.
Terrified
keep
by the
us
divine
safe from
power,
the destroyer.
Pharaoh finally expelled the Israelites.
Get out!
But he quickly
All of
changed
you,
his
leave
mind,
Egypt at once.
pursuing them
Go
with his
now
elite
before we are
chariot
all
corps.
dead.
Trapped between the Red Sea and the Egyptian army, the people cried out in terror. Moses stretched out his hand, the sea parted, and Israel crossed on dry ground. When the Egyptians attempted the same, the waters collapsed, burying the Egyptian military in the depths. Israel stood on the other shore, free for the first time in 400 years. Sinai, the law, and the 40-year detour. The liberated nation arrived at Mount Sinai, a place of terrifying glory. Amidst thunder, lightning, and the sound of a heavenly trumpet, God descended. He gave Moses the 10 Commandments, etched by the finger of God on stone tablets. This was the birth of a theocracy, a nation ruled by God. God provided the blueprints for the tabernacle, a portable sanctuary where his presence would dwell in the Holy of
Third golden
Holies.
frame goes here.
He also
by the
gave
crimson
the
curtain.
Levitical law,
Ensure the
hundreds
loops
of
align
statutes
exactly as
regarding
shown on the
sacrifice,
scroll.
purity, and social justice, to teach a sinful people how to live near a holy God. However, the
You shall
journey
bring
to the
your
promised
offering,
land
a
was
male
stalled
without
by a
blemish.
lack of faith.
Lay your hand upon its
At the
head,
border of
and
Canaan,
it shall be
at
accepted to
Kadesh
make
Barnea,
atonement for you.
12
See
spies
the
were sent
bounty of the
in.
land, Caleb.
10
It
returned
flows
with
milk
evil
and
reports of
Yes,
giants and
but the
fortified
people are
cities,
giants.
causing the nation to
Cities are
rebel.
huge, fortified
Because
to the
they
heavens.
refused to
And we
trust the
saw
God who had
giants
split the
there.
sea,
We are like grasshoppers.
that entire
They will
generation
destroy
was
us all.
sentenced to
For
wander
your
in the wilderness for
disobedience,
40
you shall
years
wander this
until they
wilderness
died
for
out.
40 years.
Only their
A year
children,
for each
under the
day
leadership
you
of
rebel.
Joshua and Caleb, would enter the land. Even Moses, in a moment of anger, disobeyed God's specific instructions and was barred from the land. He died atop Mount Nebo, looking at the horizon of a promise he could not enter. The conquest and the chaos of the judges. Under Joshua, a new generation of warriors crossed the Jordan. The conquest of Canaan began with the miraculous siege of Jericho, where the walls collapsed through praise and obedience rather than military siege engines. For years, Joshua led the tribes in a series of campaigns, breaking the back of Canaanite resistance. After the land was divided and Joshua passed away, a dark, turbulent era began, the period of the Judges. For nearly 350 years, Israel lived in a repetitive, downward cycle. 1. Sinfulness. They forgot God and worshipped the Baals. 2. Servitude. God allowed foreign oppressors, Philistines, Midianites,
This
to
section
conquer them.
belongs to the tribe of Judah.
3.
Agreed, but we must
Supplication.
mark the northern border
In their
clearly.
misery, the
Yes,
people
by the
cried
stones
out
of
to
the
God.
valley. Baal,
4.
hear us.
Salvation.
Baal,
God
accept
raised
our
up a
sacrifice.
Shophet, judge, to deliver them. This
Burn it
era
all.
produced
Take what you
legendary
can carry.
figures.
No,
Deborah,
please,
the
spare my
brave
family.
prophetess. Gideon, who defeated 135,000
The Lord God of Israel
Midianites
commands
with
you,
only
go and
300
deploy your
men
troops.
carrying torches
I will
and
deliver
jars.
the enemy into your hands.
And Samson,
It shall be done,
a
my
man
lady.
of immense physical strength but catastrophic moral weakness. The book of Judges ends with a chilling summary of the state of the nation. In those days, there was no king in Israel.
Remember me.
Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. The rise of kings. Saul, and the shepherd king.
Behold, you are old.
The people
and your
eventually
sons do not
demanded
walk
a
in your
king,
ways.
wanting
Now
to be
appoint for us a
like all
king
the
to
other
judge us
nations.
like all the nations.
Though this was a rejection of God's direct rule,
The Lord
he
hereby
granted their
anoints
request.
you
Saul,
ruler over
a man of
his
striking
inheritance.
physical stature from the tribe of
Forward, men of
Benjamin,
Israel!
was anointed.
Today we
But
march
Saul's
to
reign
glorious
was
victory
plagued by
over our
insecurity
enemies.
and a selective
Does the Lord
obedience
delight in
that
burnt
bordered on
offerings and
rebellion.
sacrifices as much as in
When he
obeying
offered
his
an
voice?
unlawful
Behold,
sacrifice
to obey
and
is
spared
better
what
than
God had
sacrifice.
commanded to be destroyed,
you have
the
rejected
Spirit
the
of the
word of the
Lord
Lord.
departed from him.
He has also rejected
The prophet
you from
Samuel
being
was sent to
king.
the house of Jesse in Bethlehem
The
to
Lord
find
has
a
not chosen
replacement.
this one.
God's
Do not
choice
look
was
on
not
his
the
appearance,
oldest or
for the Lord
strongest,
sees not
but
as
the
man
youngest.
sees.
David, a shepherd boy. David's public life began on the battlefield of Elah, where he famously slew the Philistine giant Goliath with a sling and a stone, declaring, "The battle is the Lord's." David's path to the throne was long and bloody, spent largely fleeing from a jealous Saul. But eventually, David was crowned king in Hebron and later captured Jerusalem, making it the City of David. God made an eternal covenant with him. Your house and your kingdom shall endure forever. David was a man
Saul
after
has
God's
slain
own
his
heart,
thousands,
yet he was not
and
without
David
deep
his
failure.
10,000s.
His adultery with Bathsheba and the subsequent murder of her husband Uriah left a permanent scar on his reign. Though God forgave him, the consequences
May the
haunted
Lord
his
anoint
family
you,
for the rest
and
of
may
his
you
life,
reign
leading
forever.
to the rebellion
Long live
of his
the
son Absalom.
This
Solomon's
house built for the
glory
Lord
and the
will
fractured
stand as
kingdom.
a testament to our faith for eternity.
David's son Solomon
Let the work
inherited a
continue.
vast and peaceful
Testament to our
empire.
faith for eternity.
When God offered him anything he desired, Solomon asked for wisdom to govern. God granted him unparalleled wisdom, along with riches and honor. Solomon's greatest achievement was the construction of the first temple in Jerusalem, a wonder of the ancient world, overlaid with gold and dedicated with such glory that the priests could not stand to minister. However, Solomon's story ends in a cautionary tale. To secure political alliances, he married 700 wives and took 300 concubines from pagan nations. These women turned away his heart, and the king who built the temple of God ended his life building altars to Chemosh and Molech. Upon Solomon's death in 931 BC, the kingdom split under his son Rehoboam. The northern kingdom, Israel. Led by Jeroboam, they immediately fell into state-sponsored idolatry with golden calves at Dan and Bethel. The southern kingdom, Judah, remained loyal to the line of David but fluctuated between periods of revival and apostasy. The prophets and the road to exile. As the kings of both Israel and Judah failed their covenant, God raised the prophets. These were not merely fortune-tellers, but covenant lawyers. They stood in the courts of kings and the gates of cities, calling the nation back to holiness. In the north, Elijah challenged the 450 prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel, calling down fire from heaven to prove who was the true God. His successor, Elisha, performed double the miracles, showcasing God's power over life and death. In the south, Isaiah spoke of the Holy One of Israel and gave startlingly specific prophecies about a virgin-born child and a suffering servant who would be pierced for our transgressions. The warnings went unheeded. The northern kingdom was the first to fall. In 722 BC, the ruthless Assyrian Empire destroyed Samaria and carried the 10 tribes into a forced migration, from which they never collectively returned. The southern kingdom survived for another 136 years, seeing great reformers like King Hezekiah and King Josiah. But eventually, the sin of Judah reached a tipping point. In 586 BC, the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar besieged Jerusalem. The walls were breached, the Temple of Solomon was burned to the ground, and the elites of the city were marched in chains 700 miles to Babylon. The Lamentations of Jeremiah describe a city sitting solitary, once full of people, now a widow. Yet, even in the exile, God was present. Daniel rose to power in the Babylonian court, interpreting visions of world empires, while Ezekiel saw visions of the glory of God leaving the temple, but promising a future heart of flesh to replace the heart of stone. The Return and the Long Silence. After 70 years of exile, just as the prophets had predicted, the Babylonian Empire fell to the Persians. King Cyrus, prompted by God, issued a decree allowing the Jews to return to their ancestral land. The return happened in stages. 1. The Temple. Under Zerubbabel, the foundation of the Second Temple was laid. It was modest, but it was a beginning. 2. The Law. Ezra, a scribe, returned to teach the people the Word of God, leading to a massive spiritual reformation. 3. The Walls. Nehemiah, a cupbearer to the Persian king, returned to lead the reconstruction of the walls of Jerusalem in just 52 days, despite fierce local opposition. The Old Testament period closes with the Book of Malachi, written around 430 BC. The people had become spiritually cold again, offering blemished sacrifices and neglecting the poor. Malachi's final words are a mixture of warning and hope. He speaks of a messenger who will prepare the way for the Lord and the coming of Elijah before the great and terrible day of the Lord. Then, the voice of God went silent. For 400 years, from Malachi to the birth of John the Baptist, no scripture was inspired, and no prophet spoke in Israel. It is known as the Silent Years. During this time, the world changed. Alexander the Great conquered the East, spreading the Greek language, Koine Greek, and eventually, the Roman Empire established the Pax Romana and a vast system of roads. As we close the pages of the Old Testament, the story is far from over. It is an unfinished symphony. The promises of the garden, the covenant of Abraham, and the throne of David are all still hanging in the air. The seed of the woman has not yet crushed the serpent. The lamb has not yet been slain for the sins of the whole world. The stage is perfectly set. The language is prepared, the roads are built, and the law has proven that man cannot save himself.
The world is holding its